Chapter 1: A City of Dreams. The sun was setting as Jared and Elaine's plane descended into the bustling city of Los Angeles. The city sprawled out beneath them like a glittering sea of lights, a mesmerizing tapestry of dreams and opportunities. For Jared, this trip was supposed to be a break from their everyday lives, a chance to catch up with his best friend Terry, and perhaps even contemplate a new beginning on the West Coast. Elaine, however, had a secret weighing on her heart. As they touched down, she glanced at Jared, wondering how he would react to the news she was about to share. The couple was greeted at the airport by Terry, whose infectious energy and charisma filled the air. He ushered them into a sleek, black car that whisked them away to his luxurious penthouse in downtown La. The penthouse was a marvel of modern architecture, all glass and steel, perched high above the city with a panoramic view of the skyline. As they stepped into the elevator that would take them to the top floor, Jared couldn't help but feel a pang of envy. Terry had it all: success, wealth, and a life in a city where dreams came true. The evening was a whirlwind of indulgence. Terry had spared no expense in throwing an extravagant birthday party for himself, complete with gourmet catering, a live DJ, and a guest list filled with the city's elite. Jared and Elaine mingled with actors, musicians, and entrepreneurs, all of whom seemed to be living the high life. Yet, as the night wore on, Elaine's unease grew. Finally, as they stood on the balcony, overlooking the city that pulsed with life below, she turned to Jared and blurted out the words she had been holding back: "I'm pregnant." Jared's world shifted in that moment. He looked at Elaine, her eyes filled with uncertainty, and realized that his life was about to change forever. The weight of the news settled over him, and the once glamorous party began to feel distant and surreal. As they stood in silence, trying to process the implications of this new reality, neither of them noticed the strange lights beginning to dance on the horizon. Chapter 2: The Lights of Doom. The first light appeared just after midnight, a small, bright orb that descended from the heavens and hovered silently over the city. It was mesmerizing, beautiful even, as it pulsed with an eerie blue glow. From the penthouse, Jared, Elaine, and their friends watched in confusion, thinking it was some kind of elaborate light show. But as more lights began to appear, descending like a swarm of fireflies over the skyline, a sense of dread began to settle over them. "What the hell is that?" Terry muttered, his voice tinged with unease. The party guests, once full of laughter and cheer, now stood frozen, their eyes locked on the strange phenomenon unfolding outside the massive windows. Without warning, the lights began to move with purpose, each one seeking out and locking onto a target. Jared watched in horror as people on the streets below were drawn to the lights as if hypnotized. They walked willingly into the blue beams, their faces slack with trance-like expressions. The moment they were touched by the light, they were lifted into the air, their bodies pulled toward the waiting alien ships that had begun to appear above the city. Panic erupted within the penthouse. Partygoers screamed and scrambled for their phones, but communication had already been cut off. The lights outside began to close in on the building, and the once glamorous penthouse now felt like a trap. "We need to get out of here," Jared shouted, grabbing Elaine's hand. Terry, Candace, and Ray followed, their faces pale with fear. But as they raced toward the elevators, the building shook violently, throwing them off balance. The power flickered, and the emergency lights bathed the hallway in a sickly red glow. The group stumbled back into the penthouse, realizing that their only option was to barricade themselves in and hope to survive the night. Chapter 3: The Siege Begins. The city of Los Angeles had transformed into a war zone. From their vantage point in the penthouse, Jared and his friends watched as the alien ships began to rain destruction down on the city. Buildings crumbled under the assault, streets were ripped apart, And everywhere, the blue lights continued to harvest human lives, sucking them up into the alien motherships that hovered menacingly in the sky. Inside the penthouse, the group was paralyzed with fear. They had pushed furniture against the doors and windows, but it felt like a futile gesture against the advanced technology of the invaders. The atmosphere was thick with tension, each person grappling with their own terror and uncertainty. Elaine, clutching her stomach protectively, was silent, her mind racing with thoughts of the future and the life growing inside her. Jared paced the room, his mind spinning with thoughts of escape. But every time he looked out the window, he was confronted with the reality of their situation. The city was lost, overrun by an enemy they couldn't hope to understand, let alone defeat. What do they want? Candace whispered, her voice trembling. Why are they doing this? No one had an answer. The only certainty was that the aliens were relentless. Hours passed in a tense silence, broken only by the occasional rumble of distant explosions and the screams of people being taken. The group barely spoke, each lost in their own thoughts, waiting for the inevitable moment when the aliens would come for them too. Then, just before dawn, the silence was shattered by a loud crash. One of the alien creatures had breached the building. It was a biomechanical monstrosity, all metal and sinew moving with terrifying speed and precision. The group barely had time to react as the creature smashed through the windows, sending glass flying in all directions. Panic erupted as the creature advanced, its glowing eyes locked onto the group. Ray, in a desperate bid to protect his friends, grabbed a piece of broken furniture and charged at the creature. But it was no use. The alien swatted him aside like a ragdoll, sending him crashing into the wall with a sickening thud. Jared and Terry grabbed whatever they could find, chairs, lamps, anything that could be used as a weapon, and fought back. But the creature was too strong, too fast. It tore through their defenses with ease, and it was only by sheer luck that they managed to drive it back with a fire extinguisher, temporarily blinding it and forcing it to retreat. The victory was short-lived. Ray was dead, and the realization hit them like a ton of bricks. There was no way out. They were trapped, surrounded, and it was only a matter of time before the aliens finished what they had started. Chapter 4: The Transformation. As the hours dragged on, the group grew more desperate. They were running out of food and water, and the constant fear was taking its toll. But something strange was happening to Jared. Ever since his brief exposure to the blue light earlier, he had been feeling different, stronger, more alert, but also more aggressive, as if something inside him was changing. At first, he tried to ignore it, attributing the changes to adrenaline and stress. But as the day wore on, the transformation became impossible to deny. His senses were heightened, his strength increased, and he began to feel a strange connection to the aliens, almost as if he could sense their presence. It was both terrifying and exhilarating, a power he didn't understand but couldn't resist. Elaine was the first to notice. "Jared, what's happening to you?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. She could see the changes in him, the way his eyes seemed to glow with an unnatural light, the way his muscles tensed as if ready to spring into action at any moment. "I don't know," Jared replied, his voice laced with fear and confusion. "But I think the light did something to me. Terry, ever the pragmatist, saw an opportunity. Maybe it's a good thing," he suggested. "Maybe you can use whatever this is to help us get out of here." But Jared wasn't so sure. He could feel the power growing inside him, but it came with a darkness that scared him. It was as if the aliens were inside his mind, whispering to him, urging him to give in to the changes. As the day turned to night, the group prepared for what they knew would be their final stand. The aliens had been relentless in their attacks, and it was clear that the building wouldn't hold much longer. Jared, now fully aware of the changes in his body, was torn between the desire to protect his friends and the fear of what he was becoming. That night, the aliens launched their most aggressive assault yet. Dozens of creatures swarmed the building, tearing through walls and floors, driven by a single purpose: to capture the remaining humans. The penthouse became a battleground, and in the chaos, Jared's transformation reached its peak. As the creatures closed in, Jared felt a surge of power unlike anything he had ever experienced. His vision blurred, and when it cleared, he was no longer fully human. His body had become something more stronger, faster, and imbued with the alien technology that had invaded his mind. He fought back with a ferocity that stunned the others, tearing through the alien creatures with ease, his movements a blur of violence and precision. But with each victory, the darkness inside him grew. He could feel the alien influence taking hold, urging him to embrace his new identity. He was becoming something else, something that wasn't entirely human anymore.